I've been tracking him for at least 3 months now. Special detail, off the books, hush-hush stuff. Zoos in the area have been reporting dead, mutilated, or just plain missing animals from the exhibits. All predators. Big predators. Why the higher-ups were throwing this much money at some dead lions and tigers and bears went way over my head. But money is money, and damn did they give me money. Target's name was Dr. Jonas Trill, PhD from the University of Pennsylvania in '89, top 10% of his class. File says he disappeared after completing his education. Every once in a while, he would pop up on some of the global databases. Used his passport in Queensland, paid with a personal credit card in Johannesburg, and arrested for trespassing on an animal testing site in the Ukraine. Not much of a paper trail to go on, but I can make it work. I showed up at the house of Dr. Mark Norman, package in hand. The good doctor lived alone on the edge of a suburban neighborhood, lots of trees. Majority of the sight lines were obstructed. He opened on the second knock.
Yes, how can I help you?
I have a package for a Dr. Mark Norman.
That would be me.
It's pretty heavy. Can I set this on a table somewhere?
Of course, right this way.
He led me into a large kitchen with the table to the left. I set the package down and turned to face him.
Is there anything I need to
His voice died away as he saw me pull out my gun, and his hands shot up.
I don't have cash here at the house. I don't have any medication here, but...
I cut him off. Don't need the money. Probably need the meds, but that's another story. Just here for information. Dr. Jonas Trill? Ring a bell? His face changed to a scowl, hands still raised.
Jonas? Why do you want to know about Jonas? That idiot steal some more lab equipment? Did he accidentally blow up his own lab?
Not a fan of your former research assistant?
The man had incredible promise, but he's dangerous. He doesn't respect the science. He's a thief, plain and simple. He stole some unfinished notes on a project I was working on, and by the time I discovered them missing, he'd graduated and was long gone. I motioned for him to sit down, and I took a seat at the table as well as I adjusted my gloves.
What project was this?
Xenotransplantation.
We both stared at each other for a few seconds. I broke the silence.
And that is... finding ways to transplant organs from one species to another. Organ donor lists a thing of the past. Heart, liver, kidney transplants. The potential benefits to the medical field were endless. All Jonas saw was the money. Patenting and selling it to a biomedical company was worth billions. But in the end, the project was a failure.
If the project was a failure, why would he steal the notes? He was your assistant. He would have known better.
Jonas probably thought he could get it to work. Nothing motivates someone like Jonas like a payday.
Any idea where I might find the greedy little piggy?
He mentioned once or twice that he had an office near the shore about 30 minutes from here. That's really all I know.
His eyes darted from me to the gun, then back to me. All I needed to know. I started to get up, keeping my hand on the gun. I'm sure it goes without saying. You mention me or anything we discuss to anyone, I kill you and mail parts of you to your extended family every Christmas. He simply nodded and looked away as I took my leave through the front door. Finding Trill was just a process of elimination now. Old canning facilities, storage units near the pier, all the options were slowly crossed out, leaving just one. I parked about a half a mile away from the property. I loaded up on gear, double-checked the blueprints, and took off on foot. The large 2-story house came into view as I cleared the tree line. If he called this place an office, I'd love to see what he called a home. The house stood on the edge of a cliff overlooking the ocean. The outside showed years of neglect and decay. Any metal had been rusted with all the sea air and spray that must whip up on storms and windy nights. No lights in any of the windows. No lights anywhere, except the moon, shining down on me as I approached the house. I circled the structure looking for all the entry points. Not many to choose from. As I moved towards the right side, I almost tripped over something underfoot. It turned out to be a rope. New rope. Definitely the newest thing around. Following it in the other direction, I saw it was the basis for a ladder. I peered off the side of the cliff with my small flashlight to see the rope ladder extending all the way down to a small rock platform at the bottom of the cliff, almost at sea level. Bingo. Seriously considering whether the paycheck was worth it, then wholeheartedly agreeing that it was, I tugged hard on the ropes anchored to the house, satisfied that they seemed stable enough, put my flashlight in my mouth, and down the ladder I went. With the exception of a few near misses and some rope burns on my palms, I made it down the stone platform in 20 minutes. The waves lapped up at me as I turned my back to the ocean and faced the entrance. It seemed to be carved into the cliffside. The passageway was wide enough for an average-sized person, but I had to stoop to avoid cracking my head open. The passage went on for what seemed like an hour. Just a wet, dark, slimy tunnel. Finally, I saw some light up ahead. I killed and stowed my flashlight and crouched down, preparing for whoever was on the other side. As I got closer and closer to the end of the tunnel, I heard something. Music. Big band music. Exiting the tunnel, I took in the sight of it. The enclosure seemed to have been cut into the cliff just like the tunnel I just exited from. The interior was almost completely covered in some sort of algae or moss-like plant. Over the plants were metal support structures and platforms to walk on. Large floodlights were scattered throughout and illuminated almost the entire area. I had exited onto what looked like the first floor. A ramp about 10 feet away led up to the next floor. The whole structure was over a pool of water that, from the ebbing and flowing movements, looked like it was funneled in from the ocean. Suspended above the pool was a large metal container. And on that second floor, puttering around near a computer console while looking anxiously back at the large metal container, was dear old Dr. Trill. I kept crouched and scuttled up the ramp, keeping to the wall to avoid the light. The music was loud enough to muffle my movements, so I was able to make my way up to the next floor silently. Some boxes were scattered near the doorway of the second floor. I snuck behind one of them and peered over it to take in the layout. I could actually see Trill up close for the first time. He was a short, thin man. He looked twitchy. He had what looked like scratches all over his arms. Some had scarred over. Others looked pretty fresh. I pulled out my gun and started to make my way towards Trill. When I was about 5 feet away, I called out, "Freeze, Trill. Hands up and turn around towards me." He let out a yell in surprise, but followed orders. "So, what's all the fuss about? What makes you so important that they sent someone like me to come get you?" He stuttered out of fear as he spoke.
My work is revolutionary. Some would even say unnatural. It's worth a lot of money to the right people.
"And what work would that be? The work you stole from Dr. Norman? Xenotransplantation?" He laughed, seeming to gain some courage.
Ha! Mark's research is ancient, outdated even by the standards of decades ago when I took his notes. I've moved beyond that. Far beyond. He was fine with organ transplants, piddling away time on kidneys and hearts. The real money is with weapons and military applications.
Lots of military applications for a bunch of dead animals?
Just steps on the ladder. Can't work out the problem if you don't have the materials to find the solution.
Uh-huh. Well, that's fascinating, and you can tell me all about it on our trip back. I threw him some handcuffs I pulled out of my pack, and they clanged on the floor in front of him. "Cuff yourself to the console." I saw the grates in the metal frame around the console had more than enough space to loop the cuffs through.
I just need a little more time, and then everything will be perfect. Just a few more months.
Well, you don't have months. You don't even have days. Just put on the cuffs and you'll have years to think about it. I emphasized the order by cocking the gun. "Can you kill the music? I'm not a big Glenn Miller fan.
It's Charlie Parker. And no, I can't. It's the only thing that puts it to sleep,
he mentioned as he clicked the cuffs around his wrists and through the grate. Puts what to sleep? I asked stupidly. He jerked his head towards the large hanging storage container. I turned to look and instantly regretted it. The split second my eyes were off Trill, he managed to maneuver his hands over the console and slam a button. Suddenly, the metal frame under me gave way. Right before I fell like a rock into the water below, I managed to get a shot off and wing Trill in the arm. Idiot, we both said simultaneously. Him in pain, me in resignation, in reference to me. Spitting out water and sputtering, I realized my gun had slipped and was nowhere to be seen. I immediately scanned the area. Just water and wet rock walls. Then I spotted a ladder leading back up to the second floor on the far end of the chamber. I started to swim towards it, but stopped when I heard Trill's pained voice yelling from above.
You can try to make it to the ladder, but I'd give even money you don't make it halfway.
I could hear a switch being flipped and the music died. Within seconds, scraping noises started coming from inside the metal chamber. Then strange, choked grunts and growls. I struggled to stay afloat and pulled a knife from my boot. Whatever this thing was, it didn't sound friendly. The sound of a lever being pulled down filled the cave, and the bottom of the container swung open and a huge mass dropped out into the water. The sheer weight of the thing as it smacked the water sent sea spray everywhere like a depth charge. I don't even know how to describe it. Its head was this gross mishmash of hair and teeth. The long gray and white snout made me think of a great white. Its thick, wide torso was covered in brown fur that stopped right at its back with what looked like a shark tail. Its arms and legs both ended in paws with long, thick claws at the end of each of them. All of these parts were connected with a patchwork of scars and stitches. I clung to the side of the cave as I saw the shape dive under the water. In unpredictable, jerky movements, it was coming closer. I tried to stay perfectly still. Regardless, it was making a beeline for me. My mind was going a mile a minute. I'd never make the ladder in time. The thing was moving too fast. I frantically felt around the wall for some kind of edge or shelf in the rock I could pull myself up with. Nothing. I raised my knife, ready to stab it. It was pointless, but I wanted some feeling of control before I died. It was breaching the water right in front of me, its jaws wide open, and then it just stopped. It started violently thrashing about, water spurting out of its mouth and everywhere. I tried not to make any sudden movements. Then it just sank. I waited, but it didn't come back up. As fast as I could manage, I swam over to the ladder, scaled it, and dashed over to the surprised and wounded Trill. He looked up at me with wide eyes.
What happened? How are you? Where is my subject?
The bear shark thing? Pretty sure it drowned.
What? How could...
What was it like? 70% bear, 30% shark? Apparently not enough shark. You spent months experimenting and mutilating and Frankensteining, and that's the best you could come up with. You chopped up and stitched together two functioning apex predators, and the end result was something worse. And not worse in a you're playing God thing. It's just shitty craftsmanship. Sharks can swim. Bears can swim. That could not. What military applications does a 3,000-pound furry anchor have? I want to shoot you right now, because I feel like I'd be doing you a favor. Nobody should have to live with the weight of such failure. I kind of want to kill myself just being adjacent to the failure. Come on, get up. I grabbed him by his bleeding arm.
Please, it hurts.
Yeah, well, if it gets too bad, you can amputate and replace it with a trash can. Continue your legacy of improving natural design. I contacted the higher-ups and they had choppers take Trill away within the hour. The recovery team had to get a wench to pull the thing out. Yep, definitely dead. And the autopsy revealed, surprise, definitely drowned. I think this is the point where I'm supposed to lament his wasted potential and not all the good he could have given the world, but I won't. Not because he's an idiot, which he is. Not because he's a doctor idiot, which he also is. I won't because I almost got to fight a grizzly and a great white at the same time, and he took that away from me.